Broadcasting live from the Subaru of Gwinnett studio inside the Gas South Convention Center in Duluth, Georgia, it's time for Gwinnett Business Radio. Gwinnett Business Radio is presented by Regions Bank, Brave the Beginning, member FDIC, and equal housing lender.
Greetings and salutations, everybody. It is your slightly annoying host, Stephen Julian. Welcome to another wonderful edition of Gwinnett Business Radio, broadcasting live from the Subaru of Gwinnett studios inside the beautiful, stupendous Gas South District Convention Center. We have two great guests that we are going to get to. We have Katie Wagner here from KWSM, a digital marketing agency, and we have Renee Lewis from the R Lew Ready Podcast and Happiness Coach. But before we get to our guests, I have to bring in he who is in a different chair today and freaking out a little bit, my wonderful co-host, Harper LaBelle.
Welcome back.
Thanks.
It's been a couple weeks, hasn't it?
I am in the midst of a massive business transition.
No, you were going to quit, weren't you?
No, I'm not going to
quit. Did Mike talk you back?
Well, actually, it's super secret probation Mike put me on.
Double secret?
Yeah, double secret, which now, but he's not here. We miss you, Mike.
Yeah.
Not really. But yeah, so it was double secret probation. We'll see what happens now that you've had me announce it on the air or got me to announce it on the air.
Well, I don't want to say anything that you don't want to share on the air. That would be disrespectful, wouldn't it?
You know, there are people, the bingo cards that just keep going of when Mike is going to actually fire me. We'll see who wins.
I'm like Kramer. He's already fired me. I'm not,
or
I just don't know it yet.
I just come in through the vents and, I call
Absolutely.
them. Yeah, they can't get rid of me. All right. People,
we have a show to do.
We have a show to do. And thankfully, we have two fantastic guests who are going to pull us out of this mess that I've created. So I apologize. Yes, Katie Wagner is here from KWSM, Digital Marketing Agency. Katie, welcome to the studio.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning to you. And you are the head of a fantastic digital marketing agency for those people who've been living under a rock over the last 10 to 15 years. What is it you guys do, and how do you help businesses with their digital marketing?
Well, KWSM is a full-service digital marketing agency. That means we do everything from websites and SEO to digital ads, social media, blogging, video, you name it. If you can do it online, we do it in-house. And we specialize in lead generation. So sometimes digital marketing agencies focus on creative or branding or those sorts of things. We do all of those things, but in the service of driving leads and sales for our clients.
And lead generation is something that, much like digital marketing, has changed dramatically in the 15 years that you've been doing that. What are some of the biggest changes, and what are you excited about those changes as you talk to us today in 2025?
Yeah, well, we like to say it's a different job every 6 months because the tools change all the time, and it's the only profession where the tools you use are actively working against you, right? Google doesn't want us to rank. Facebook doesn't want the algorithm to reward us.
They want you on there, but they don't want you utilizing it to its fullest capacity or changing the rules.
That's right. We can't win.
Yeah.
And so it's constantly reconfiguring what we do because of what worked last week isn't going to work next week. And so it's a really challenging space to be in. But I think one of the things that's changed most recently is with the advent of AI, there's so much content out there on the internet, so many pieces that are just flooding search that it's much harder to rank, number one. And number two, people don't trust the internet the way they used to.
No way.
I know, shocking. So when I started the business in 2010, you could rank pretty well in search and people would land on the website and buy or sign up for your services, and it was a much easier job. These days, there's so much noise, there's so much distrust that I think generating leads strictly through search is much, much harder. And the way that people trust these days is through other people. It's through people they know, partners they've worked with. If you were going to need an attorney or whatever, you used to just go online, find 5, look at their websites, and that was that. These days, you might ask Harper if he knows somebody, right? You might ask a friend or if they've used somebody they know. And so we at the agency are really leaning into what we're calling near-bound marketing.
Okay.
So traditional inbound is that content creation, search online. Outbound is cold outreach. But near-bound is really leveraging our clients' strategic partners and reaching their audiences through those relationships.
So in a way, please correct me if I'm wrong, but in a way where the internet, there was this talk of, it's going to get rid of brick and mortar as a way. It's almost coming back around full circle. The internet is still a great tool, but it's the relationship. It's who this person knows that I know and that I trust. It's testimonials of real people. So let's just, one of the things you guys talk about on your website, and one of the things that designates you guys very different from some of your competition, is you call yourselves brand journalists.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I think it's our approach to content and the way we tell our clients' stories, and it leans into Nearbound. You said, things are coming back around to brick and mortar, and that's true. People like people, right? We want connections with each other, and that's never changed in hundreds of years. And the other thing that's never changed is we respond to stories. Like the way we explain things to each other is through stories, right? And so brand journalism is a way of creating content that really leans into storytelling about the business. We tell stories about the people that make the products and services. We tell stories about the way that people use the products and services. But it's more relational than just strictly factual. We don't talk about benefits and value proposition. We talk about the real pain points and the way that humans are benefiting from these things. And that allows us to create content that AI can't create, right? That has quotes from our clients because we interview them. It has stats and real life case studies and anecdotal stories. And that content tends to resonate a lot better with people. And I was a journalist before I started the agency, and it really leans into the way I understand how to communicate and the way my team does. And so being brand journalists instead of marketers really gives us a mission that's beyond just promoting products and services. We're really there to tell stories and to make connections for our clients.
Well, Katie, you mentioned your journalism background. When, as a little girl, did you say, you know what, I want to be in front of the mic and tell the story of the baby being delivered out of the burning building, right? Was that something that started very early for you?
It was. At first, I wanted to be president.
Yes.
And then when it became obvious that was going to be a lot of work, I shifted to journalism.
There you go.
So, yes.
That's a great line, by the way.
I wanted to be in journalism since I was a little kid.
I want to interview the president and find out why we're not getting this taken care of.
Yes, and I have interviewed 4 presidents in my
really?
journalism career. Yeah,
Nice.
Bush, Clinton, and Obama.
Were you in the office, the little press thing? I hear that's a tiny, tiny little room. It's not very big at all.
I've never been in that room, so I can't tell you. But I have been on Air Force One. Does that count?
Yes,
Yes.
it does.
Okay, all
That's
right.
even better.
Yeah.
Off
I
air,
thought
we got to
so.
talk about Air Force One.
Okay, we will. We will.
What color are the drapes?
It's kind of like a burgundy navy kind of motif.
And it changes from, now have you been for multiple presidents?
No, I've only been under the first President Bush.
Okay.
So
Very nice.
yeah. But yes, I always knew I wanted to be in journalism and went to college for it. So
Where?
Boston University.
Okay. And you're not from Boston.
No, I'm from here, Atlanta.
And so BU says, come on up and we'll teach you everything that you need to know. And then you start working right away, don't you?
I
Networks?
did. Yeah. Well, I started working at National Public Radio in Boston while I was still in college. And that was my first job. And then a couple years out of college, I transitioned to TV and worked in Portland, Maine, which is just a small market. But you'll remember that on 9/11, the terrorists had been living in Portland, Maine.
Yeah.
And that's where they originally got on the planes that they then crashed into the World Trade Towers. And so my job when 9/11 happened was to track down the girlfriend of one of these terrorists and tell the stories of what this guy had been doing with his life in the years he'd lived there. And, I hate saying it this way, but that was really one of the launching points of my career because that story got picked up by the network and there was a lot of attention. And I was able to then move up from there. But it's a sad way to say, oh, it was my big break, right?
Mm-hmm. But your time in news and your time in journalism, you never quite got away from, and rightly so, and well done. It's really the story.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the facts, and those matter. Absolutely. They matter. But it's crafting the facts into a well told story. And so as you make that transition from journalism again into digital marketing, and we talked about the term brand journalist, but as coming from journalism into lead generation, that was one of the things I want to say, because there's tons of digital marketing agencies, and this is me talking. This is just my opinion, but in my time around kind of developing my own business and trying to find clients and that kind of stuff, so much of digital marketing is not about what it really comes down to. And so here as a journalist, it's like, what does it really boil down to? What's the most important thing? And it's lead generation. So I'm going to ask you to go back to near-bound lead generation. Just
Okay.
how do you, if you're sitting with a client, if you're sitting with a business owner, what should their expectation be? I mean, you're not going to, it's not unicorns and rainbows and you'll have, thousands of people coming in the door as to be potential new clients. But what should business owners expect when it comes to lead generation from working with a digital marketing agency, especially KWSM?
Okay, so much to unpack there.
Yeah.
So you are right. We could throw a rock here and hit 20 digital marketing agencies, right? And that word or those words mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And there is a lot of marketing and branding just for awareness and the sake of it. And I think that's important, but it's not, to your point, it's not lead generation. Lead generation is more tied to sales than it is to marketing. It's more tied to revenue and operations. And it's about how are we generating a pipeline for our clients. And the way we do that at KWSM is by positioning our clients as thought leaders, as market leaders. And we like to say we're creating iconic brands, iconic companies, and we're positioning them as best in class because everybody wants to work with the agents or the company that's at the top of their category. And so we use brand journalism and near-bound marketing to do that. Brand journalism to tell authentic stories, to really dive into the differentiators and create thought leadership content. And then near-bound marketing means that we also lean on strategic partners and their already relationships in their business to help disseminate that content and get it out to new audiences where that trust is already built.
I know you've got a world of stories. Can you boil it down to one, especially thinking of the audience of our podcast of business leaders in Gwinnett, small to medium-sized businesses that are looking for ideas and maybe it's a story of success, or maybe it's a story of someone who was making a huge mistake when it came to digital marketing. You were able to turn that around. I'll give the floor to you. And what story would you like to tell?
I'm going to tell you a story about a CPA firm that we started to work with, and they specialize in helping older people with their finances. And often that means they're hired by the kids of these older people, right? And so we came in, we've been working with this company about 7 years. We have long-term relationships with our clients because, to your earlier point, lead gen is not a magic bullet. It takes months and years to work. And so we started telling the stories of these elderly people and their families that my client was helping. And that came through blogging, it came through website copy. Sometimes we would issue press releases. And we started building their rankings and their content, and it helped them get found online, but it also helped with the referral network. Families would like to see themselves featured in this content, and then they'd share that content or they'd tell their friends about it. And long story short, we built up so that we're generating a couple $1 million a year in revenue for this client, which doubled the size of her business. And she recently was acquired by a much larger CPA firm. And typically, when our clients get acquired, their brand gets wiped out and they become part of the larger company. But the larger company said, this is such a valuable revenue channel for us. We'd like to keep everything exactly as it is and have you operate in your silo. And then KWSM stays engaged to run that. And you're part of the larger company, but we're not going to touch a thing. And that rarely happens, but it was such a success story for us because it meant that what we'd created, had real tangible business value, which is always the goal.
And on the smile on your face, you say, boy, this is great because you don't have a corporate takeover or a hostile situation where you have shares trading. We love the way you're doing it. Keep doing it that way. Don't mess it.
Yeah.
Part of your strategy is, in my opinion, taking art but yet science and meshing them together. There's the art of, hey, I'm going to do things differently as a CPA for an elderly couple than you do for, or couples than for, let's say, nonprofit organizations that are out there. But the science is, this is what works. We're going to tweak things. We have a strategy. We have an implementation process, execution, and then the reevaluation every, 3, 6, 9 months to...
Every 90 days
90
we reevaluate.
Days.
Yeah.
Talk a little about that process and how that's unique in what you do. And I would imagine that's part of what you had to do every day when you were working in journalism.
Sure. Well, in journalism, there's immediate feedback, right? You get ratings every day, and you know whether your work landed or not. The same is true in digital marketing. We have metrics and data that we're gathering all the time. And I think one of the biggest mistakes people make is they may invest in a strategy and they set the strategy and then they start executing and they never revisit that strategy. And what happens is we can collect a lot of data to see what's working and what isn't. So every 90 days, we slow our roll, we do a complete evaluation of what we've learned so far, and we tweak our strategy. So if we're not getting optimal results, that's only the case for a matter of weeks before we can course correct. And I think, it takes a lot of resources, takes a lot of time, a lot of patience to do that. But I think that discipline is what allows us to get better results for our clients because we do constantly evaluate our own work.
If I'm the widget company president, CEO, CFO, and I say, Katie, I'd like to work with you because there are certain things about my widget company that I need to be getting better. They have to improve. How long does the process take before you really get to where, okay, we're going to look at your website, and if I'm afraid of it being tweaked so much that I don't recognize it anymore, that's a problem. Sure. But then again, if it's not as effective at sales as what it should be, then it has to get tweaked, does it not?
It does, yeah. And there's a difference between a pretty website and an effective website. You may have a really attractive, beautiful website that represents your brand, but if it's not following best practices for conversion, you're not going to be able to generate leads online. And so our process starts with a 6-week strategy process where we're going to audit everything you're doing now. And usually we don't say you need a new website. We say we need to make these tweaks to it to make sure it can convert when we drive more traffic there.
You get to be the editor, don't you? Every now and then. Or at least say, this is what works with other folks that are in similar widget businesses, correct?
Sure. We're making recommendations because that website is the hub of any marketing or lead gen strategy. And so you have to have that be functional. And then we're also saying we need more images because we're telling real stories, or we need more videos, right? So there's that implementation period, and then we'll get into executing strategy. And so, you didn't really ask me this, but a lot of people ask, how long does it take to work, right? Like once we start, when am I going to see leads?
Yeah.
And the hardest part about digital lead generation is you have to have the stomach for it. It doesn't happen overnight. You have to gut it out a little bit. But typically within about 3 months of execution, we can see that things are going in the right direction. And that brings us to our first analysis period.
And speaking of having the stomach for it, is there a problem with asking for the sale? Isn't that what you want in the first place? So do you change the website so that you get to ask for business, or at least present it in a different manner to where that's more available?
Yeah, having call to actions and that sort of thing on the website is important. But you know how if you've ever been mattress shopping and the salesperson comes up and says, "Can I help you?" What do you say to them?
No, just looking.
Yeah,
just
browsing. Just browsing, thanks.
Yeah.
People are the same way. We don't like to be sold. We like to buy, but we don't like to be sold.
We love to buy, but we hate to be sold.
Yeah, and so it's really giving them the information they need to make their own decision. And sometimes websites don't go deep enough into that pathway, right? You see the call to action button that says buy now at the very top. Well, I don't have enough information to buy now. Mm-hmm. And that's where the brand journalism comes in. How can we tell them stories, give them anecdotes and data and stats that help them get to that point?
It also depends on the business. Nobody goes and, no CPA has at the top of their website, buy now, get your tax prepared now, but it's more the call to action is the equivalent of the buy now. Do you want more information? Do you want to set up a consultation? Do you want us to call you?
Right. Or read our case studies, or here's an ebook, right? We're constantly giving them things.
I know loyal listeners of Gwinnett Business Radio can't wait to hear about what you do with Harper LaBelle Widget Company, because I know by now on the widgets you need that on your website. So maybe
but I'm scared. I'm scared to ask for the sales.
So all those questions were about the Harper LaBelle Widget Company. So, so Katie Wagner of KWSM. How do business owners and business leaders and other people who want to increase their digital marketing, want to get some nearbound lead generation and work with the best brand journalist in the business, how do they get a hold of you guys?
Well, the best way is our website. It's kwsmdigital.com, or you can always find me on LinkedIn, just Katie Wagner, but I'm on there frequently.
Nice. Isn't it interesting that a digital marketing agency, the best way to reach them would be through their website?
Well, I was on the website, and the thing I like about it is that there's always more, right? There's another place where you can click on, and if I want more information and I want to dig a little deeper, I can do so. You give the shovel to do so. That's what I got out of it.
Thank you.
On purpose, you did it that way, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Giving you the information you need.
Yep.
There you go. KWSMdigital.com. Katie Wagner from KWSM. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks. Good to see you.
Absolutely. Harper, before we get to our next guest, I believe you have a message of love for our audience.
We always want to talk about what we love, and love is what Subaru makes it. My
What?
chair moved. I'm in your old chair. Love is what makes a Subaru. You can enjoy the big savings and the hassle-free experience at Subaru of Gwinnett, where people help you sell cars. And you can visit SubaruofGwinnett.com. You can join their family today. You come on in and see the difference. If you're already a Subaruist, then you can check out their Facebook page for the latest news, offers, and community events at SubaruofGwinnett.com.
Now, there's a company that tells good stories and has good things to say, and specifically Subaru of Gwinnett. So we want to thank them for always allowing us to bring our show from their studio, the Subaru of Gwinnett Studios. Okay, we both butchered that. Sorry, Subaru. We'll do better next time. Fair?
Very fair.
Okay. Yeah. It is time to talk to our second guest. And we locked the door, so she wasn't able to leave. But it's a fellow podcast host. It is Renee Lewis from R Lew Ready Podcast and happiness coach.
Yeah. Good morning.
How are you, Renee?
I'm happy.
Oh, really? It's so fitting that
Yes.
you have that podcast and you coach about happiness. So tell everybody about the podcast and about the coaching service.
All right. So, R Lew Ready Podcast is a happiness coach podcast that airs on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and different networks. And I incorporate the day-to-day topics that people go through so that they can achieve happiness as a byproduct of life. So I really, really enjoy the podcast piece because it is an inspirational moment for me to be able to give back to not just people that are within my reach, but people that are possibly, in other states and maybe even looking at an international opportunity. Yep.
With the digital branding agency sitting next to you, I want to make sure and do this right. So R Lew Ready is, if you're searching for it, it's RLEW, right?
Yes.
RLEW Ready Podcast. So everybody can search that. How often do you broadcast?
So right now I'm doing about 2 episodes a month because I feel like it has to be inspirationally led. I just can't do it, at the top of my head sometimes because I want to make sure that it's meaningful and impactful. So I usually do about 2 podcasts a month.
Okay.
I have a segment. So right now, the topic of our segment is on love. So I've actually dropped 1 episode on love, and I have 2 more that I'm going to be working on by the end of the month. I feel that it's also appropriate since Valentine's Day is this month, the month of love.
And I think I'm now contractually obligated to say love is what makes a Subaru. But anyway, that's I don't want to get all over your interview. You are a certified happiness coach.
Yes.
You got to unpack that for me.
All righty.
Because that's not just, I'm just going to call myself a certified happiness coach. There is actually a certification process. So talk about that.
Yeah, and the way it happened was I was sitting on my back porch watching a couple of birds fly around and enjoying nature, and I had just previously got coached myself by a life coach who helped me eliminate some limiting beliefs in a situation that I was having throughout my life. So I felt that it was very impactful and meaningful, so I wanted to find something that would align to my personality. So as I was looking on the website of IAP Career College, I looked at the different coaching opportunities and certifications, and happiness popped up. So I giggled, of course, to myself, and I started thinking about, does this align with not only my vision, but what others are saying about me? I always hear a common trend of, oh my God, you light up a room. We just love to be around you. You're so funny. You're so, you're always so happy. You're always so positive. So I started diving into what it would take to be a certified happiness coach. So IAP offered a online 12-week certification course that you can go at your own pace, and I kind of did that in between working and preparing for my MBA in that fall of that year, and I really found an interest for it. So I started informal coaching my friends in their conversations, and I saw how I would get them to start thinking and questioning their thinking. And then I started wanting to make sure that I started a business on it so that I can actually help others that are outside of that circle and they can actually benefit from it as well.
Very interesting. I was just going to say, there's stinking thinking. You're able, I would imagine, without being a psychologist or a person that would be in that field, There's certain things that people think that you can recognize right away. Well, let's stop right there, because if you go any further, you're going to take it down the wrong road or the wrong path. Your ability to recognize that, even you said just a few moments ago, friends or family members say that you were different. You didn't think that way. Talk about that process in terms of you, and then being able to turn that into a passion that you have, and obviously into a business.
So I've always been a forward-thinking individual. I mean, there's times in my life where I probably talked in a circle or repeated myself. And
No way. No one does that.
all the time. I'll be like, this is a circle. I gotta go.
Come on, no way. No one does that.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah. So I started realizing that forward thinking is a growth mindset. And in order to achieve the things that I've achieved in my life, I had to have forward thinking. So sometimes it's hard to push through because you got those obstacles and those barriers in front of you, and that makes you want to retract back into that circle. But if you push through, you're going to get the momentum and the growth that you need to succeed, right? So I applied my own determination, self-determination. I was told as a young child that I've always been focused and determined. Some of my siblings shared some stories with me that I couldn't believe that I was even that focused at the age of 3. But I feel like that's a common trend in my life, right? I see a vision, I see a goal, and if it's something that I want to obtain, I will, in a sense, be MIA to get that done.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be able to help others with that, because I see people struggle with that sometimes. They set a goal, but they can't get to it because they allow their obstacles or trials or tribulations to interfere with getting the goal done.
Yep.
So just being able to set those goals and being accountable for your own action, and just having that sense of accomplishment on the other side is something that I felt like I needed to give back. I needed to share. It's a special gift.
It's interesting. I used a different word instead of a goal. I'm the result. You see the result in your head, and you're not easily distracted. Right? There's a way to get to that result. Well, you're off the path. Let's get you back on it. And you help others. What's your goal? Where do you want to be, or what would you like to accomplish? Correct? Is that part of what your process is? And how do we get there?
Yeah.
I want to lose 10 pounds. Well, why are we at the all-you-can-eat buffet?
Yeah.
We can't be there. We need to be exercising. We need to be dieting. We need to be sleeping well,
right,
and thinking positively, and pushing the plate away. There's a result, and the distractions take away from that. And your ability to recognize that and help others get there, that's where the magic is, right?
Yeah, and there's some difficult conversations. I mean, it's not, when people want to be coached by a happiness coach, they're thinking it's going to be like comedy, or you're going to laugh for an hour and a half. No, you're not. We will laugh. I mean, that's that's going to happen. But there's difficult conversations.
We've got to get the trash out of the room, don't we?
Yeah,
we've got to talk about the trash.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think that people lack wanting to be accountable, to actually push through, to have happiness as a byproduct of life. That's the goal. The goal is not to eliminate the trials, the tribulations, the obstacles, and all the hard times. It's identifying that once I get through this, not only am I going to learn from the process, but I'm going to be happy that I either went through the process or that I have achieved happiness again on the other side of the process.
We are wow. I got all flustered. That was a fantastic message.
Well,
We're speaking with Renee Lewis. She is the host of the R Lew Ready Podcast. I don't know if you gave me permission, but I asked if people talk about your podcast and kind of really spice up that title, R Lew Ready. So yeah, you did roll your eyes at me, so I won't do it too much.
No, you're fine.
But you're also a happiness coach, and you said it right there in one of the answers that the Happiness Coach Podcast is an uplifting podcast centered on motivation coaching, and you are trying to get to where happiness is a byproduct of people's lives. Talk about the coaching. You do it one-on-one. You also do group. If I'm a business owner and I'm like, there's just not a lot of happiness in my team, Talk about how you work on a corporate setting as well as individual. But really, I want to focus on that corporate because we have business owners listening.
Yeah, absolutely. So I try to tie in happiness with some type of professional development because you kind of want to coach people on happiness and achieving happiness. So what I do in my presentation there is making sure that we have some exercises, right? Just small group, 30-second exercises that the group can do, some mindfulness and relaxation. So we would start with that. And then I would start at probing and asking questions. What is your definition of happiness? You know, because sometimes people have definitions that say, oh, if I get a new car, if I buy a home, if I get married, or those things, those are usually tied to short-term happiness. But what I'm looking at for that answer in that question is long-term. What makes you happy in the long term, right? So after we sit down and we establish a happiness definition for the group or for a few people, then we'll start talking and diving into a scale. I use a actual global scale for people to use to kind of gauge where their level of happiness is. And that usually kind of enlightens people to say, oh, well, I thought I was happy. And then I try to make sure that it ties to something relevant for the business, because as being in the corporate setting for the last 6 years, and then returning back into the healthcare industry, I noticed that professional development was a very hard task to get on some of the employees on board with. So I like to try to make sure that, yes, we talk about happiness first, but then we also set a goal that's relevant for the business. And sometimes that's just how do I develop professionally? What are some of the steps that I need to do? Because if I can create a mindset for you to want to achieve happiness, then you can develop yourself. You can see purpose in that professional development. Sometimes if people are not ready to professionally develop themselves, they may want to personally develop themselves. In personal development, I don't know if that's harder than professional development, because personal development means you need to look at yourself in the mirror. You're going to have to really take a good look at who you are, what you're doing, and where you want to be.
If someone were to engage you individually as a happiness coach, is there a set number of sessions? Does it kind of depend?
Yeah. So
I don't want to pin you down on an answer there.
Oh, no, that's fine. Sometimes you can do laser coaching, right?
Yeah.
And laser coaching is usually like a 10 to 15-minute coaching session just to kind of get in and get out. But I don't think it's as effective as actually having 8 to 12 sessions, right? But it just depends on the individual and where they are in their level of accountability. If the individual finds themselves in like a cycle, then we're going to need more time, because I got to break the cycle. I got to break what you believe to be the truth to get you in a linear position to move forward. So it just depends on the individual, and it just depends on the level of time and commitment they want to put in.
Stephen has said on numerous occasions that he'd be a lot happier if he didn't have to work with me. Dan's not quite so bad in that.
Amen.
But how do you deal with people that are having issues with other folks? It's not just me. I can't stand the way Bob scratches his
Stephen, go ahead.
The way things that others do. That to me would seem, instead of I need to work on this, which you ultimately will say, Harper, yeah, you're the one with the problem. It's not Bob over there. It's you. But when you have different individuals that are supposed to be in a team and working together, but they don't like each other very much.
Well, then you have to separate the team. You got to do a one-on-one, right? And then you have to identify common themes. I always use the example of people that say, I don't have any friends. Well, do you know how to be a friend? You got to be a friend to get a friend.
Yep.
So when people have common themes, like, every time I go to work, every job I'm at, there's always blah, blah, blah. So we have to first break the iceberg with the individual before we can bring them together as a team. Because you have to be able to see your own flaws and be self-aware of what you need to change in order to function and engage in a group. Because the group is going to move together as a solid unit, but it only is going to be powerful and empowering if all team players are on board. So coaching is just that, wanting everybody to win, right? Coaching is not therapy. When I start seeing an individual needs therapy, then we need to find you a therapist. I'm the coach designed for you to win and the team to win, the unit to win.
I see the difference, and and you don't have a whistle, but basically there's a result that we need to get as a team. Let's get there. We're not getting there right now. Mm-hmm. If I've got a guy that's got to sit on the bench or another one that is going to get on the field because they're doing a really good job and they're helping us to win, you help to recognize that.
Yeah, and you also have to help the team recognize that those people that are looked at as critics are essential to the team as well, because they have a different scope. They have a different perspective. They may see something different. But the goal is to make sure that they don't interfere with the progress of the team and the momentum of the team.
Or simply just understand their role.
And
your role right now is A, B, or C. In the widget company, right? We're going to talk about widgets again.
I like it. Yeah.
You know, you got to help sell widgets.
Yeah.
That's your role.
So we're changing the website and we're changing the team morale. I like this.
It's all a part of it, yeah.
It's Harper brought his work into work today.
As Fred Sanford would say, you're helping to build the empire. We got an empire to build.
So I was going to say, if someone is listening to this podcast and go, I think I need a little more happiness in my life, then you need to listen to the R Lew Ready podcast. But also, if people around your work environment have said, you remind me a lot of Dwight Schrute or Ron Swanson, or you watch The Office reruns and you watch Dwight and go, yeah, he's got it all together. You might need some happiness coaching. So if someone wants to engage you, of course they want to listen to the podcast, so feel free to give a recap on that. And especially if people want to look at the coaching services on an individual basis, a corporate basis, how do they get in touch with you?
Well, the best way is probably to email me at rlewhappy2@gmail.com. I respond to those emails really rapidly, and then we could set up a time to connect. I can provide you with a phone number to access me, or you can look at me. You can look me up on LinkedIn, or you can go to my website, R Lew Ready Podcast Happiness.org, or Facebook. I'm always accessible. You can always reach me, and then we can set up a time to connect or meet.
And the main thing is they need to listen to your podcast.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Co-opetition is a good thing. So you're not competition to us.
No.
We have a little silliness, but we talk business, and then let's talk some happiness.
That's right.
And is it a different topic normally every month?
Well, it's one topic with 3 episodes.
Okay.
And then because I feel like there's got to be a definition, a how-to, and then a maintenance, how to maintain.
Okay.
Yep. So.
And in the description that we were doing pre-show, there are certain topics around, maybe we'll talk about goal setting, you might talk about positivity. You even tackle some things of spirituality, self-worth, resilience. So there's a lot of. It would be hard for somebody to look at the list of shows and go, I can't relate to any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Then you're lying to yourself.
Yeah,
and you need more happiness in your life.
Absolutely.
So Renee Lewis of the R Lew Ready podcast, thank you so much for being here.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And happiness coach. Sorry, I didn't add that on.
That's okay.
Yeah. So you're very happy about it, and I appreciate that. Harper, so any announcements about the widget company that we need to know about, or is that still we got to do some digital?
Well, we just got to keep
first?
people that are unhappy, like you, out for a while. We got to get you, to the point where you start experiencing greater joy and.
So I am fired from the widget company.
No, you're not fired.
I'm
There's
on
room for you.
temporary. There's room for me.
Always.
On the team?
There's room for all kinds of.
What would my role be at Harper LaBelle Widget Company?
You'd be probably in charge of getting the digital marketing together.
Well, no,
you know how to do
not
that.
At all. I would immediately call in Katie Wagner.
That's what I'm saying.
KWSM.
So then Katie can be a part of it.
Right. So then what?
But she's got her own company to run right now.
Well, no, but she would help. She would help with the digital branding. I think. I guess could I be? I don't know. I feel like I could help cheer up the troops.
I think you could be
bit.
Mr. Widget for right now.
Mr. Widget.
Yeah.
So there's a costume. I'll be the mascot. Is that what?
In part. You know what Mike's doing right now?
You know what I'm loving is Mike is not
he's
here.
gnashing his teeth
All
together.
right, so to our wonderful guests, Katie Wagner from KWSM and Renee Lewis of R Lew Ready Podcast and Happiness Coach. One of the things you don't know if you haven't listened to past episodes is when Mike's here, he's sitting back there and he gets up and he walks out because he despises. It does not bring him happiness that Harper and I will drone on and on and on at the end of the show and never end it. which is very
And
unprofessional.
they nod in agreement.
Yeah, they
they don't like. They know what Mike's
we don't like it
doing.
either. We're ready to get out of here. It was a great show, but come on, wrap up the show. And Dan can do nothing about it because he's so nice and he's over there smiling. But he did Mike's trick. He played the music. I like
It's
it.
like the Oscars when you get your music off.
I like it. So thank you to Katie and thank you to Renee for being here. Harper, thank you as always for being my trusty co-host.
You're a good widget man.
It is
Yeah.
never a dull moment. So everybody go buy Harper LaBelle widgets, and Mike will be back, or maybe not. I won't be. We'll see if I go back on double secret probation. Thanks to Dan for producing. We'll catch you next time on Gwinnett Business Radio.